Water is an invaluable resource. It is linked to our environment, our socio-economic development, our climate, our sanitation and health, and our politics. But as a water-stressed country, South Africa is expected to reach a 17% deficit of water by 2030. The country has a history of building dams to address water security needs and to provide essential bulk water supply to its population. However, the construction of dams does come with disadvantages. Dams can disrupt normal surface water and sediment flow, leading to sediment being trapped and unavailable for essential downstream ecosystem functioning. This can lead to erosion and ultimately reduce storage capacity of dams over time. Sedimentation rates in South Africa are extremely high and pose a serious threat alongside increased water demands in the region. When a reservoir is filled with sediments, it affects the reservoir site and community in adverse ways. To assist in addressing these challenges, the South African Department of Water and Sanitation issued a directive to the Water Research Commission to develop the National Siltation Management Strategy for large dams in South Africa. More commonly known as the NatSilt program, the program is initiated and funded by the Department of Water and Sanitation through its Infrastructure Build, Operate and Maintenance (IBOM) branch.
Well, our responsibility first is that we need to take responsibility for the 276 government water schemes in the country. That includes 321 state dams, which is the large dams that takes about the capacity for more than 90% of the total storage capacity that we have in the country in all of those dams. So firstly, it's our assets that we need to manage, and then we also have to operate it and to keep it in the operable state for as long as possible. Some of these dams were built in the early 1900s, even before, and with the lifespan of civil engineering infrastructure that we designed for about 25 years, you can understand as to why we have to apply proper asset management to ensure that we actually increase the lifespan of all of this infrastructure.
The NatSilt program will be undertaken over 3 phases within 3 years and is expected to be concluded in 2023. Under the custodianship of the DWS and WRC, it'll progress from conceptual and strategic development to full operationalization, including capacity building and training. There will be regular monitoring and adjustment of the strategy.
So in terms of this program, it's going to provide the department with tools, with knowledge and with intelligence information to actually make decisions for each and every circumstance that may find itself at a certain dam. There might be certain dams where you will take a decision through normal operations that you can minimize it. That will help the department to make that decision. But in certain instances where the sedimentation is of such an extent where you have to deal with it, that you create a business model that will not be to the detriment of those who are dependent on the dam. Because as you will know that the department is not expecting the fiscus, the taxpayer, to pay for the operations of all dams in the country. It's the users in that specific catchment that pays for that. So if you then have to apply expensive methodologies to keep it going, it will be to the cost of those who are downstream. So to minimize that, you need to come up with business models that will help us as a department and as a country to have those dredging models where so implied, where it's necessary to implement them, that you do it in a business style which will minimize the cost to the downstream user.
The WRC has been appointed as the implementing agent by the department, so to roll out this program, so to coordinate the research activities. But what's different with this program as well is that in the first phase is we're doing the research, we do the collation, we're doing the assessment and kind of working out where could we try this. And the next phase is around piloting some of these models and concepts that we're developing in the current phase. So it's also about bringing together inter and transdisciplinary research and know-how, because as we said, it's the spectrum of the problem is quite wide. So you can't just say we have a technical solution and we know which barge to bring in to dredge and which equipment you need.
In the last year, some of the country's dams have experienced up to 90% sedimentation, with storage capacity losses ranging between 10 and 30%. It's a situation that requires urgent attention, continuous surveying, and development of siltation and sedimentation solutions.
We have actually established our whole economy, our whole livelihood around these majestic structures that we have, but we can so easily lose them if we don't apply proper management procedures as to keep them in that state.
Some of the main challenges are that we know that we have been in a changed climate. So often when we talk about climate change, we think it's something that's still going to happen, but we've been dealing with it almost since the beginning of the 80s, late 70s. So that's why we could see some of these shifts taking place. So we have been managing through that. So climate change is one of the things that we must keep an eye on, that we must mitigate and that we must adapt to. And then of course on the other scale we have weather variability, and we see that on now and again that our rainfall might not have in terms of volume changed that much, but the intensity, the duration is much shorter, everything overwhelms us. Ineffective operation and maintenance is something that not only on the resources side but also on the infrastructure side that's problematic. Vandalism, so often we say, oh, it's government is not doing that, but it's across, that's why I say it's a spectrum of problems. So and to try and mitigate against these challenges, you also need an institutional and governance response that says it's not only about getting more water to people, but also how do we protect and how do we manage what we have. And this is what we want to achieve, is to develop a framework, not to say this is the menu or the cookbook of how do you do this, but what's the philosophy if you go to a catchment? What do you look at, for example? What are some of the land use planning and land use problems that we see that we can then say, okay, this is how we can fix it, and this is what we need to do to mitigate against our dams silting up, and then of course the reduction of storage that goes with it. So you can't hold back as much water that you want to, because a lot of the space has been taken up by sediment. In those cases, the dam is the symptom of the problem. It is not the problem, because if you think about what's happening upstream in the catchment, that's releasing all the sediment that's not natural, plus poor land use.
The key deliverables of the NatSilt program are to develop a dam basin siltation management operations model, a sustainable dredging business model or models, a dam basin classification decision-making tool, capacity building, a step-by-step comprehensive implementation plan and piloting of the draft strategy, models and tools. A pilot plan potentially rolled out in 3 government water schemes, namely Welbedach Dam in the Free State, Hazelmere Dam in KwaZulu-Natal, and Darlington Dam or Orangefish GWS in the Eastern Cape.
Essentially, the program aims to ensure the bulk water resource infrastructure is managed in an efficient, effective and sustainable manner to ensure economic growth, social development and poverty eradication. This is through effective siltation management and related improved storage capacity of South Africa's bulk water resources. The program will provide a package of siltation management solutions as well as an overall strategy. Siltations of dams is a global problem which results in the lost storage capacity as the sediment that accumulates in dams exacerbates water insecurity. With this program, we hope to address some of the water challenges that the country is facing, but also to instill a collaborative approach instead of various institutions and organizations working in silos. There are several options for preventing and managing siltation in our dams. The program aims to provide a package of solutions to address siltation management. Siltation management should not just be a blanket approach for all dams, however, it should be site-specific. In a country where water shortages have caused considerable economic harm in the past decade, the storage capacity that is retained and restored by siltation prevention would go some way to reducing the water deficit. The same siltation prevention would save scarce fiscal resources by extending the life cycle of our existing dams. It is not sustainable to build dams to solve storage capacity loss. However, we need to think of more sustainable ways.
The 4 sub-projects of the program are development of a siltation management strategy, dam engineering and socio-ecological systems, or SES, sustainable dredging of the dams, and training and capacity development. Sub-Project 1. Development of a siltation management strategy. Sub-Project 1 of the NatSilt program aims to develop an implementable strategy to prevent and manage the siltation of dams, as well as stimulate local economies and cost recovery. It'll be developed through pilot case study sites. A key feature of the strategy will be the ability to adapt and improve as learning experiences are developed. The strategy will be supported by risk management and monitoring and evaluation frameworks, governance and financial considerations, a digital platform or tool, and future research requirements. Recommendations related to design, technical and engineering enhancement, environmental management and local economic development will be drafted during Phase 1, tested in Phase 2 and finalized in Phase 3.
Sub-Project 1 is the dam siltation management strategy and an implementation planning framework. The other 3 projects then run concurrently with us but feed into the strategy, which is the key component taking forward with regards to the siltation program. Now, SP1 is basically one project which is going to be done into a phase process, and we're starting our first phase. So there's 2 components to our work. The one is the engagement and assessment phase, and then the other phase is the actual development of the strategy and implementation planning framework. The next phase, which is the department and what the Water Research Commission will take forward, is the actual implementation. So basically taking the strategy and getting it out into the field and getting things done and getting people to start co-managing dam siltation management in the catchment. When it comes to the stakeholders, our team decided that we didn't want to just look at the dam component of it. We wanted to look at the broader layout of the catchment area and how the sediment dynamics works in that catchment area. So we took a reading of the landscape approach or concept, and that concept basically looks at source, so where the water is actually coming down off the mountains, into the transfer through the rivers and the gullies, and then you got into what is called the sink zone, which is basically the dams, and then you get the downstream to that, which also has sediment impacts and siltation impacts on the ecosystems downstream. So you can see that we didn't want to just look at just focusing on the dams and develop a strategy and implementation plan for that. We wanted to look at the broader scope. Now, using that broader scope means we have to look at a broader amount of stakeholders, because there's a diverse amount of stakeholders as well. So when you're looking at the transfer and the source in terms of rehabilitation, alien vegetation, catchment management, you need to involve those stakeholders. And then when you get into the transfer, there's the rivers and gullies rehabilitation. And then when you go into the sink zone, is more the regional and then the community bases along the way. So when you're looking at involving stakeholders, you're not just looking at national level, you're looking at national, regional, provincial and local levels. Naturally, the main deliverable is the dam siltation management strategy and implementation planning framework. And that is supplemented by case studies, beneficiation models, pilots, and also looking at monitoring and evaluation, and also the risk assessment frameworks. So all of that will be supplemented into the strategy and implementation plan itself. So the main focus of what we are trying to do in terms of the project and the deliverable that needs to be done is that strategy and implementation plan. And that, of course, needs to be approved by the department. And then once it's approved, needs to go into the wider sector to be implemented.
Sub-Project 2, Dam Engineering and Socio-Ecological Systems, SES. Current models used to manage siltation minimization in South Africa are not scientifically developed nor consistently applied. There is a need for these models to be reviewed and revised, while new models should be proposed based on the drainage regions and other triggers of siltation and sedimentation. Sub-Project 2 of the NatSilt program aims to generate and test tools that will enable the alleviation of dam siltation. This will be done through optimized catchment management as well as dam engineering methodologies, such as integrating both ecological and built infrastructure and innovations. The sub-project intends to propose an operations model to optimize and enhance dam management plans, processes, procedures, regulation and compliance in order to contribute towards a more efficient and effective siltation management approach in the country.
Subproject 2 basically involves the development of tools to allow future dam managers to manage their dams. And that incorporates both the development of a classification system as well as an operating model to allow them to make decisions. In terms of stakeholders, we have a lot of universities involved to give their specific and very technical inputs, as well as other relevant stakeholders such as the catchment management agencies and of course the Department of Water and Sanitation. The main deliverables that we are producing as part of this project are a review of existing literature. So that means that basically looking at the existing data that's out there and then collecting it all and presenting it in a readable form. And then the actual tools themselves. So we're developing a classification framework that allows us to classify any particular dam on whether or not it's sustainable or exhaustive and how we can get it to be more sustainable rather than exhaustive. Then there's also an optimization tool which aims to allow future dam modelers and dam operators to allow them to make decisions as to the best way to go forward when operating a dam, whether that means intervening at the dam itself or rather focusing on the catchment, for example. And then lastly, we're also looking at the institutional and financial aspects. Of course, all these interventions cost money, and there's always the big question, who's going to fund that money? Where's that money going to come from, and who's going to be responsible for it? So we're looking at various avenues as to exactly what money is available and also what the flow of that money could be from the end user, for example, to the implementer.
Sub-Project 3, Sustainable Dredging of Dams. Increasingly, sediment removal from dams through dredging is seen as a potential way in which to regain lost storage capacity. However, the decision to dredge a dam is inherently complicated, and in the South African scenario, there is limited knowledge to make an informed decision. While dredging is a relatively efficient yet costly technique to deal with and dispose of sediment, it does prevent environmental risk and impact. This is where NatSilt program Sub-Project 3 comes in.
So the main objective for our study is to develop a piloted and sustainable dredging model and also protocols so that we can help dredge dams in South Africa. And this also includes a risk assessment for the sediment quality and the water quality within relevant South African legislation. And then we're also looking at the disposal or any beneficial uses for dredged material. So ultimately we want to provide a decision tool to help people plan and implement dredging on dams in an effective manner. So we have 5 specific deliverables, so bullet by bullet. We obviously have the dredging model and protocols that we're working on, but in order to achieve that, we have other deliverables as well. So we had a literature study that looks at national and international best practices for dredging of dams. And then a draft report as the third one on case studies and lessons learned from case studies of dam dredging. And then we have a workshop as a deliverable where we can share any new knowledge that we've gained, any new information that will ultimately lead to the success of this project, as if other people can implement what we've put together. And then finally we have a report that consolidates everything into one document. Ultimately, the program is looking at addressing water shortages in South Africa, so that's a big benefit. I think we're also all working together to look for other kinds of benefits like economic opportunities. On our side, dredging has the potential for job creation and also helping the housing shortage. For example, the dredged material can be used for brick manufacturing. And I think it's also important to make sure that we're on par with international standards. This is not a problem for South Africa alone. And there's also a lot of grants and funding available from overseas, and we can create awareness around that. Dredging is one of many solutions. Obviously, reservoir sedimentation is a problem. That's why we're here today. And we're losing our storage capacities at approximately 1% per year of our dams. And we need a more holistic, combined approach to catchments and dam management practices. Dredging just forms one part of that. But dredging can help to directly remove accumulated sediment in our older dams that are under exhaustive conditions. It is typically expensive, but if done properly, it can make a difference.
The sub-project will explore beneficial use of dredged silt and assess job creation and industry development as offshoots of any dredging exercises. It will consider learnings from other countries such as the Dutch partnerships, as well as local economic development, LED, environmental impacts and opportunities, and the viability of infrastructure and technology. Sub-project 4, Training and Capacity Development. We all know that a strategy is nothing without skilled people to implement and execute it. Sub-project 4 of the NatSilt program aims to develop an empowered new cohort of skilled professionals and citizens to enhance and improve the efficiency of dam siltation management in South Africa. This sub-project will ensure there is a parallel capacity building component to support new skills development and skills transfer through the NatSilt program.
The NatSilt program has 4 sub-projects. 3 of them are rather technical, and including strategy development, various tools and practices. And then sub-project 4 is the capacity development and training work. So we're specifically looking at integrating all the stuff that comes from the other projects into a learning opportunity for skills development. The Association for Water and Rural Development has assembled a team of experts to develop what we're going to be calling skills programs. We have a hydrologist on their team, we have a computer programmer, we have experts in qualification development, and then of course we also require to have people who liaise with the qualifications authority in South Africa. So that's our team, but essentially we see the SP 1, 2 and 3 as extensions to our team. We really rely on them to feed us the technical side of the program, various models and the strategy itself that can feed into our team. And then we also have a reference group that provides us with professional guidance. So that's another aspect to how we work. And then we have another one, which is a community of expert practitioners. These are people who've worked in the field for years in South Africa. And of course, they guide us in terms of the content, the skills that we need to address, and make sure that we're reaching the actual quality of the qualifications that we need to ensure happen. And then we have an extended community of practice, which are really all the people out there who have an interest or a stake in dams and dam siltation management. So this could be the agriculture sector, the mining sector, commercial business and so on. And we will be working with them to develop that. And then lastly, we have a dam siltation management communications network. And this could involve local government, it could involve civil society organizations, universities, and the media, so that we can get our messages out more broadly. It's not just simply about the technical side. So probably the most important deliverable as far as SP4 is concerned is the development of what we're calling skills programs. So those skill programs are officially recognized and they will be registered with a relevant authority in South Africa, so that we're developing a national skills program. So we've opted for this particular approach because we could have just done workshops with practitioners or a more informal approach. But the nature of this particular piece of work really requires that we are going to really have to upskill a lot of practitioners that are out there in the field, mainly because this work is new, mainly because it requires a high level of technical skill, and perhaps the incorporation of a whole lot of new information, monitoring systems, and so on. So it's not something that can be taken too informally. We really need to make sure that it's well planned, thought through, and that there's adequate quality. We're also going to develop an e-learning platform where, because of limitations for to travel and the COVID issue, we really were having to train people remotely. So an e-learning platform is going to be an important contribution. We're going to populate that platform with a whole lot of modules. And of course, there's skills modules because it's a skills-based program, as well as knowledge modules. So that's an important deliverable that we will submit. And then, of course, the other things are we obliged to do things like a recognition of prior learning, so that practitioners who have been in the field for years, we can recognize their contribution and we can actually put them into the program without having to do all sorts of registrations as we would have to do if it was at a university. We will also develop what is called a community of practice. So we're hoping to bring practitioners together at catchment level. So this is really about a systems approach, which is not just about a dam manager operating a dam. It's about drawing in all of the stakeholders who might have some impact on the sedimentation that happens in dams. So it could be the agricultural people upstream of the dam. When we talk about capacity development and the concept that we've adopted in this program, we mean capacity development in the broader sense of the word. So if an institution, be it the Department of Water and Sanitation, wants to manage sedimentation problems, we need to be looking at not just training the people who are working in a particular position. We need to ensure that there's adequate tools available to them. There's adequate, such as modeling, monitoring systems. We need to look at, of course, the strategies in place, because that's a long-term guiding thing. So, yes, capacity development can look at training of individuals, but capacity development for institutions requires a systemic view. And that's the approach that we've adopted. So it means working in a different way to simply just training people. It's looking at the whole system. It's looking at the legal compliance. It's looking at the various practices that are out there and available. It's looking at job creation for small businesses to benefit from dredging, for example, and the sale of sediments into the building industry, and so it goes on.
Already, progress has been made to develop skilled professionals who are ready, willing, and able to enhance and improve the efficiency of dam siltation management in South Africa. The WRC, through its graduate employment program, fosters human capital development by providing work exposure to young professionals. The NatSilt program has 5 graduates who are gaining practical, on-the-ground experience through involvement in the graduate employment program.
Basically what I'm doing now is research as a graduate. I was on sub-project 2, which is dam engineering and socio-ecological systems. I studied civil and environmental engineering at Wits University. Another component of it, of the course that I did this course in final year, right, which is integrated resource management. So that one forces you to look at things holistically, right? So if you look at water resources, you don't just look at that particular resource, right? You look at the processes upstream of it and downstream of it, right? So with this particular program, I was able to actually apply that, because one of the components that are part of that is part of the course was integrated water resource management, right? So that looked at how water affects food security, affects social conflicts, affects the economy, right? How those things connect, right? So with this particular program, I'm looking at, let's say, the dam siltation, right? How the reduced capacity affects downstream processes and the economy and the lives of people. So that's the part that I can say that I actually applied.
I'm currently on sub-project 3, the dredging feasibility, including just everything about the dredging operations and sustainable dredging. And my current role, I'm really just helping, I guess, collate research and trying to find different aspects of dredging that either haven't been done in a South African context or contextualizing it all for us in South Africa. At least, like, upon finishing also, I realized, I have quite a big passion for the earth in general. And this is one way where I can be hands-on in helping the earth while still obviously helping people, which is at the forefront of everything.
I chose this field because I've always been passionate about water, on how it is treated, how it is conserved, and its management. So when I went to tertiary, that's when I wanted to study something that is related to water. I've applied most of the things that I've learned at tertiary level. For example, I did apply environmental law when I was given a task to research on the policies and legislations that are involved in siltation management. And towards the deliverables and the reports that were sent, I applied my project management background, whereby it made easier for me to understand those reports and deliverables. So that's how I did apply what I learned at school to this NETSIL program.
I am under sub-project 2, which deals with dam engineering and the socio-ecological systems involving dam engineering. Growing up, I had this absolute big fascination of how things are built, especially, driving around bridges and stuff like that. I used to be so interested as to how did it get to be such a big structure. It would be great to be part of something so huge, even in the smallest kind of way. So I've always been interested in that, and I come from I was born in a more underdeveloped, parts of SA, and so seeing what a difference a road can be to that particular community, or what a difference proper infrastructure can be in the smallest way, I always wanted to be a part of that and kind of make that difference in whatever way I can. So I think that passion came from that.
Currently, my work involves doing research on large dam sustainable dredging, which is sub-project 3, and also on the National Siltation Program. I studied from the University of Venda. I did a bachelor's degree in the field of environmental science. I've applied what I've studied on the graduate program and also on the NETSIL program through research, and also through the siltation program, wherein we had to write reports on siltation, wherein my environmental field comes into play, talking about sediment transportation and how it impacts on siltation, or in rivers and large water bodies. That's how I've implemented what I've studied.
Water is life. We know that you can be an economist, you can be a geography person, engineering, all of it, and water is around in every single discipline. So it's a very good sector to try and get into, because one, it helps everybody and everybody is needed in it.
In moving from strategy to action, the NATSIL program is being undertaken within 3 distinct phases over 3 years, ending in 2023.
So phase 1, which is where we're currently at, will entail developing a strategy for siltation management with relevant tools, models, frameworks, protocols, guides, and plans to assist in the implementation and monitoring, where sub-project 1, 2, and 3 will essentially be part of phase 1. And then we've got phase 2 and 3, where phase 2 will kick off during year 2 of the program, which starts later during the year, and that will run in parallel with closeout of the first phase. Phase 2 will entail piloting of the decision-making tools, operating models, and dredging protocols, as well as the capacity buildings and monitoring and evaluation indicators, where sub-project 4 plays within all 3 of these phases, because it's essentially developing the skills programs up until the end of the program. Then we've got phase 3, which is essentially the culmination of the program. It will involve taking the learnings from phase 1 and 2 and revising the strategy and adapting and improving the models and tools based on the interactions we've had with our stakeholders, and obviously the pilot phase as well. We encourage synchronization across the sub-projects by ensuring that the sub-project teams share their reports with each other, share innovative ideas amongst each other, and they're up to date with what the progress of each of their deliverables are. We aim to stimulate cross-pollination across the sub-project teams. This is also done through combined workshops we have with all the project teams of the sub-projects.
Over these 3 years, 3 government water schemes will potentially serve as prospective sites for the pilot project plans of the NATSIL program. Welbedacht Dam in the Free State, Hazelmere Dam in KwaZulu-Natal, and Darlington Dam or the Orange Fish GWS in the Eastern Cape. The Welbedacht Dam is a concrete barrage-type dam on the Caledon River, which was designed and constructed by the Department of Water Affairs in 1973. The dam was a catchment area of some 15,245 square kilometers with a natural mean annual runoff, MAR, around 1,210 million cubic meters per annum. It is situated in the Morda River catchment, which has insufficient water resources to meet the growing water requirements of the region. The water supply to Bloemfontein is, therefore, augmented from the adjacent Caledon River by means of the Caledon-Morda River Government Water Scheme. Due to the high sediment concentration in the water, the transfer from Welbedacht Dam is first purified at Welbedacht Purification Plant, which is located just downstream of the dam. Siltation reduced the storage capacity of the Welbedacht Dam rapidly from the original 115 million cubic meters to roughly 16 million cubic meters during the first 20 years since its completion. This reduction in storage created problems in meeting the Bloemfontein demand at an acceptable level of reliability, and as a result, the 50-meter high Knelpoort Dam was completed in 1988. Hazelmere Dam is a combined concrete gravity-type dam located on the Mdloti River in KwaZulu-Natal. It was established in 1976 with the primary purpose of serving for irrigation and domestic use. The hazard potential of the dam assembly has been ranked high. Demand for water has increased critically due to the significant increase in development within the supply area of northern eThekwini, including unprecedented urban and industrial development around the King Shaka International Airport. The increase in siltation levels of the dam further exacerbates the problem of ensuring adequate water supply to water users within the supply area. Darlington Dam is a gravity-type dam situated in the Sundays River near Kirkwood in the Eastern Cape. It was completed in 1922 and only filled by 1928, the delay a result of extensive drought. The primary objective of building the dam was to provide adequate and perennial supplies of water for large-scale irrigation in the fertile area, particularly by storing and controlling floodwaters. The original dam was designed to store 140 million cubic meters. The high sediment yield of the Sundays River meant that sediment delivery to the reservoir basin quickly reduced its capacity. The impoundment now has a capacity of 187 million cubic meters with a 35.3 meters high wall. Its primary purpose is for irrigation, industrial and domestic use. Is raising the dam wall a suitable solution to siltation? The NatSilt program will look at providing a suite of sustainable solutions for siltation management to enable the Department of Water and Sanitation to choose the best solution for a specific dam instead of having a blanket approach. In striving to ensure the success of the NatSilt program, the Water Research Commission and Department of Water and Sanitation will be counting on all stakeholders to support and collaborate around the National Siltation Management Program for large dams in South Africa. This will ensure that the NatSilt program can move from strategy into concrete action to ultimately ensure effective siltation management and improved storage capacity of our dams.
What we want to answer with this program as well is that what are the catchment activities that we can stimulate that might be slowing down the siltation, but at the same time generate livelihood or improve livelihood and generate jobs and stimulate the economy, etc. And then these are not your typical programs that we would say, okay, do we have the dam siltation program? What do we do with the dam? Because the dam to me is 20% of what we need to fix, 80% is outside of the dam. If we want to solve some of our more pressing issues, it's about taking that hand and taking that our resources and know-how and say, but how do we mesh them together to come up with a common solution?
We do not want to make this strategy into a document. We want to make it into a living, working document that people can go out there and co-manage the sedimentation problem that we have and make sure that we are implementing solutions that are applicable with not only for a big dam, but for a small dam as well. and looking at different options in terms of technology, innovation to address this, and not just going back to the fact that yes, desludging is the only answer that we have to come up with. And I think that's important for the stakeholders.
The biggest achievement that we will get out of the successful implementation of the national program will be that we will save money. We will save funds to the fiscus. We will save funds in terms to the downstream user, whilst we're trying to keep our infrastructure, our assets, our storage, our dams in operable state for longer than what it would have been if we allowed nature to take its course as far as the sedimentation phenomenon is concerned. Because keep in mind, that's a natural phenomenon, but through the manipulation of the way we're operating the flow through the dam can actually then minimize it, and that is all to the financial benefit as well as the longevity benefit of that infrastructure to the department and the country. It is to the benefit of the country to ensure that the water source, which is primary for economic development of a certain area, it will have a general effect into the country. Then there are other dams that is integrated into a system, into the Vaal system, into the Orange system, that has got impact in terms of food production, which is agriculture, irrigation, but it all leads to food production, and food production is a national economic stimulus. So that is how the impact will be then wider, secondary to the fact that when you look at it in a singular form in its local state. The Water Research Commission, with all of these various stakeholders that are coming to the party, and that is going to assist us to actually have a more circumspect view in terms of how we're going to take this thing forward. So my message to all the stakeholders is, bring your message, influence the project, influence the program to ensure that we can see this element of the business from all angles possible and allow us to make the best decisions on how to go forward, because this is the plan for the future. This is the plan beyond us in terms of how we do believe that even future generations can look at how our infrastructure is going to be taken forward, because this majority of this infrastructure we've received from previous generations anyway. So it's now our responsibility to ensure the continuum.